On November 6, 2015, Activision released Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Today, Black Ops 3 is considered by many to be one of the greatest games that Call of Duty has ever released. Right up there next to the greats like Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare, and Call of Duty Mobile. The game launched with mostly positive reviews from critics and fans alike, with an average score of around 80%. Black Ops 3 was also a financial success, selling 6.6 million copies during its first week, and ended up grossing $550 million within the first 3 days of release. The game would go on to be nominated for the Best Shooter and Best Multiplayer awards later that year. The game didn't do much to improve the Call of Duty formula, but the new momentum-based movement system was enough to make up for it, reinforcing the Call of Duty run-and-gun multiplayer style. GameSpot awarded Black Ops 3 a 7 out of 10, saying Black Ops 3 doesn't offer anything remarkable to the series, but does just enough to maintain the Call of Duty status quo. The game's campaign was also decent, but wasn't able to attract the attention of Black Ops 3's player base. But this video isn't about the game's multiplayer or campaign. Today I'm going to be focusing on what I believe to be Black Ops 3's strongest aspect: zombies. With Black Ops 3's zombie mode, the passion from the developers was clear from the very start. At this point, people had never seen a zombies mode like this. Black Ops 3 Zombies had a clear focus on the hardcore fans of the series, and ended up creating some of the greatest content that we'll probably ever see from a Call of Duty game. At the point of release, Call of Duty Zombies' future was extremely unclear, with Advanced Warfare's Exo Zombies mode being extremely unpopular with the fans, and Black Ops 2 Zombies being hit or miss. Today, many consider Black Ops 3 to be one of the greatest Call of Duty Zombies modes ever released, but it wasn't always that way, with many players critical about the game's content on launch. How did Black Ops 3 become the greatest zombies game ever? Well, today we're going to examine the game and answer that question. Black Ops 3 Zombies kicked off with the map Shadows of Evil. The map takes place around the 1940s in the fictional Morgue City. 4 characters are transported to Morgue City by a being called the Shadow Man, a supernatural creature and the leader of the alien race, the Apothecans. Since the Shadow Man is unable to interact with the physical world, he manipulates the 4 into finding a mythical object known as the Summoning Key, which has the ability to affect the Ether. In return, the Shadow Man will allow the 4 to atone for their sins, with each of the 4 committing a murder. Jack Vincent was a corrupt cop who turned his back on his partner. Jessica Rose was a burlesque worker with dreams of being on Broadway, but when she learned of a photographer that had some dirt on her, she ended up killing him. Floyd Campbell was a washed-up boxer who was the definite underdog in all his fights, but when he had a shot at the championship fight, he put brass knuckles in his gloves and ended up killing his opponent. Nero Blackstone was a magician who grew up wealthy but ended up falling into debt after his wife spent a substantial amount of their money. This would lead to him killing her. But enough with the story, we'll talk about that later. Let's get into the map itself. Shadows of Evil had an amazing aesthetic, heavily inspired by 1940s New York, with the map being illuminated by flickering street lights and populated by a variety of tall brick buildings connected by catwalks. The enemies were heavily inspired by the work of H.P. Lovecraft, an American writer of weird science fantasy and horror fiction. He's best known for his creation of the Cthulhu mythos. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll just throw up some pictures right now, but basically what I'm trying to get at is the map's ambiance and overall feel was amazing. The once bustling and highly populated city was now abandoned. Every once in a while, you'll look up at a building and see a lit up window, giving you the illusion that maybe there's someone out there with. The map has a very warm color palette, choosing to go with a reddish orange hue, as these colors can either suggest passion and vitality or anger and deceit. Shadows of Evil leans more towards the latter. All of this comes together to create one of the most eerie, palpable atmospheres that we've ever seen from a Call of Duty Zombies map. But the scariest thing about this map was when you decided to queue in solo when your mom was home and she walks in during the opening cutscene.
Honey,
Shit in there. Skip.
Pictures.
No, Mom, what are you watching? Oh my! Please, no, that's not what it looks like. The player uses a new feature called Beast Mode to power up / open the map. Throughout the course of the game, the player will perform 4 rituals in order to unlock Pack-a-Punch. The map organizes itself with a main area that branches off into 3 districts: the Footlight District, the Waterfront District, and the Canals. The player can use the tram to move around the map faster for a price of 500 points. The tram is found in 3 districts within the map. Shadows of Evil also provides a plethora of buildables like the Rocket Shield, Apothecant Servant Wonder Weapon, Civil Protector, and the Sword. The map came with a lot of content and new features such as the Beast Mode, but initially the reaction was mostly negative. I mentioned earlier that Black Ops 3 Zombies was more geared towards the hardcore fan base, so the map was extremely confusing to new players, and many returning players weren't too fond of the new mechanics that the game presented, and criticized the game for the lengthy setup process that Black Ops 3 would later go on to be known for. But over the lifespan of the game, as players spent more time with the map, many would come to love it and view it as one of the best designed zombie maps of all time. Today, the map's new mechanics that were originally disliked upon release are now what make it refreshing and help it stand out against other maps. Overall, this is a really good map with an even better aesthetic. But with that being said, let's move on to the Giant. Before I get into the map itself, I'd like to talk about the Black Ops 3 story. I will provide some context and a short summary of how we got here. In this video, I won't attempt to touch on the entire zombie storyline as it's way too convoluted and will require a whole nother video. Okay, let's go. During the events of Shadows of Evil, the 4 characters learn that the Shadow Man has tricked them, so they begin to fight against him. In the end, they are able to take the summoning key for themselves and trap the Shadow Man inside of it. The group plans to give the key to a powerful race known as the Keepers, but just as the group hands the key over to the Keepers, a German scientist named Edward Richthofen emerges from the portal and steals the summoning key. Richthofen plans to use the summoning key to create a perfect reality, one free of zombies and apothecans. In order to complete his plan, Richthofen needs the help of Takeo, Nikolai, and Dempsey to collect their souls. After stealing the summoning key, Richthofen heads to the Giant, where he kills the version of himself and meets up with the other 3. Now with that little story segment out of the way, let's talk about the map itself. The Giant was released alongside the game and could be unlocked with the purchase of the Season Pass or Black Ops 3 Special Collector's Edition. The Giant is a remake of a map called Derice that was previously featured in Call of Duty World at War and Call of Duty Black Ops 1. The map's structure stays the exact same, but gobblegum machines and new wall weapons are added. The map also keeps the classic Wunderwaffe and monkey bombs. It's kind of funny that the Giant was the exact opposite of Shadows of Evil. Let me explain. The Giant was relatively small and simple, seeing as it was a remake of a previous map that was beloved by fans, so it already had that going for it. This game also had Takeo, Nikolai, Dempsey, and Richthofen, who we followed ever since World at War. It was what the fans were already used to, and people loved it so much that they bought the Season Pass just for the map alone. On the other hand, Shadows was heavily criticized for its complexity and long setup process, the integration of new mechanics, and unfamiliar nature. They're both great maps, I just thought that this was a really cool contrast. The Giant is set in Derice, a Nazi facility in Germany. It has several rooms within it. The starting room is just outside of the factory itself. The player can gain access to Pack-a-Punch by linking the 3 teleporters to the mainframe in the starting room. Like Shadows, this map's overall aura and ambience is impeccable. This is one of the aspects that Black Ops 3 really excels at, balancing the lighting and soft orange-reddish hues together to create an environment that feels almost palpable. It's also really nice to hear the dialogue between the group, as the last time they were all seen together was 3 years ago during the events of Origins. Their personalities clash to create a multitude of hilarious and memorable moments. The map also has 2 really good training spots, with the first being in the spawn room and the second being next to power. This adds to the casual nature of the map as it makes it easier for high rounds, and with gobblegums this map can be an absolute breeze. And of course, I can't talk about this map without mentioning the catwalk, as it's one of the most iconic structures in zombies. The map is extremely enjoyable solo and even better with a full squad of 4. The map has an amazing replay value and improves on almost every aspect of Derice. Overall, I'd say this is a success, and the Easter egg is pretty easy. But now let's move on to Eisendrache. While at the Derice facility, the group steals a giant Origins robot and uses it to pursue an alternate version of Dempsey. Since I don't want to make this complicated, I'm just going to say this now, that we're following the 2.0 groups, and they're attempting to kill the 1.0 group. 1.0 Richthofen was already killed at the Giant, and 1.0 Dempsey is the one that they're chasing right now. Eventually, they end up at the Eisendrache castle. The group fails to retrieve Dempsey's body as it is sent to the moon in a rocket. A German scientist and former colleague of Dr. Richthofen named Groff plans to experiment on Dempsey's body. The Eisendrache was released on February 2nd of 2016 as part of the first DLC pack. The map is set in a strange castle in Austria known as Eagle's Nest. The map introduces 2 new wonder weapons in the Ragnarok DG4s and elemental bows to complete the Easter eggs. The bows can be upgraded through completing specific quests. The map also brings back the Wonder Fidge, which allows the player to spin for a random perk, and brings back the Panzer mini-boss from Origins. The Eisendrache takes inspiration from other great and influential maps such as Moon and Origins. It's also inspired by a real-life location, Hohenwerfen Castle, an absolutely stunning location and a great way to get views. Hey. The map is almost twice as large as the previous map, the Giant, but that doesn't make it hard to navigate, with a series of underground tunnels, jump pads, and teleporters helping the player to find their way around pretty easily. No part of Eisendrache feels bland, with bright and compelling areas like the Undercroft, Death Ray, and Rocket Test. The map just flows perfectly in a way that I can't put into words. It feels damn good to play. To this day, I believe that this map has the most replay value of any Zombies map. The Easter egg is also one of the best in Zombies history, as it's not only extremely enjoyable, but utilizes almost every part of the map to its maximum potential. Even though the map is fairly easy with a large amount of buildable wonder weapons, the map is still able to attract core Zombies players, as it provides just enough of a challenge and gives you the option of an Easter egg. Personally, I would put Eisendrache in my top 5 maps of all time, and I'm not alone, as the majority of the community absolutely loves this map to this day. This is an instant classic. Every once in a while, I'll just throw on some some music, and get lost in the map's beauty. The map is near perfection, and I couldn't think of a better way to start off the DLC season. But now let's get on to the map story. The group is able to retrieve the rocket containing Dempsey after using the death ray to blow up the moon. After the group retrieves the body, Richtofen reveals his plan to the rest of them. He needs to kill the 1.0 versions of themselves and collect their souls in the summoning key. Dempsey volunteers to kill the 1.0 version of himself in a scene that's genuinely touching. Dempsey, who presents himself as a tough guy with a devil-may-care attitude, is forced to drop his facade when he is confronted with the prospect of his own death. He looks himself right in the face as he presses the button to end the life of his 1.0 counterpart.
Better tomorrow is only possible if we blow away the ashes of the past.
After killing Dempsey 1.0 and putting his soul in the summoning key, the group travels to a Japanese research facility called Zetsubou no Shima with the goal of finding Takio 1.0. The island is filled with zombies and giant spiders who were experimented on by the group who built the facility, Division 9. Around this time, this map actually sparked some interesting discussion, let's say.
The spiders, in desperation, have a very, very dark feature. They are able to take up the habitat of capturing human men to mate with.
The map also has a very unique aesthetic for a zombies map, as most maps go for the abandoned building feel with an orange or blue color palette. Zetsubou no Shima takes place on a Pacific island, home to an abandoned Division 9 facility. Ancient ruins can be spotted all around the map, and the island's plant life is very alive and hostile after being experimented on by Group 935's Japanese counterpart, Division 9. Mutated plants and animals serve as enemies as the player fights their way through the horde in search of Takio. The map takes inspiration from previous maps like Shangri-La and Shinonuma, especially Shinonuma, as the same swampy feeling is achieved in this map as in Shina. Both maps are also Division 9 locations, so the similarities are a little bit more obvious. The map has a large amount of buildables with the Shield, Gas Mask, Skull of Nansapwe, and KT4, and technically the Pack-a-Punch. The map also requires a somewhat lengthy setup process, as the player collects 115 water to supply temporary power to the main bunker. Once the main bunker is open, the player is able to turn on temporary power by surviving and killing zombies in an underwater area. The player can also harvest plants with the chance of getting a power-up or new weapon. The map also allows the player to complete trials in return for a max ammo. But I don't think I can go any farther without addressing the elephant in the room. This is one of the most disliked maps by the community. Many criticize the lengthy setup process and say that it takes way too long to get power. Many also don't like the way the map looks, calling it ugly and gloomy. I personally really love Zetsubou and have many fond memories on it. I think the Easter egg is actually really good fun and rewards the player for their commitment despite how easy it is. In my opinion, Zetsubou is the most underrated zombies map ever. I know many won't agree, but that's okay. But I've had this opinion for a while, and I kind of just wanted to get it out there. Rant aside, let's get back into the map itself. The map brings the swimming mechanic from multiplayer into zombies for the first time ever. The new feature is used multiple times in the map. The player needs to limit their time spent underwater as they are able to drown. The player can actually regain air by shooting the spores underwater that appear all around the map. Zetsubou also provides a variety of new enemy types like the Thrasher, a mutated plant zombie mini-boss. The Thrasher can actually consume down players and keep them inside himself until he dies. The player is able to kill the Thrasher by shooting the 3 spores around its body. The map also introduces the spiders, which serve as the new Hellhound. Just like the Hellhounds, the spiders actually have their own dedicated round, where at the end they drop a max ammo. Spiders can also be killed when they walk through the various spores that spawn around the map. The spiders are able to block off doorways and restrict access from perk machines and gobblegum machines by webbing them off. The map features a variety of new utilities as well. The map sees the zipline from Shinonuma and Call of the Dead Return, as well as the sewer pipe, which can take the player from the bunker to lab A or B and back. The map gives the player a bunch of options to experiment with. And while the map doesn't provide that many standout locations, the whole map just kind of fits together very naturally. Overall, this is actually a pretty good and underrated map, in my opinion. Now let's move on to the story. Zetsubou has one of my favorite zombies cutscene, which the player gets after completing the Easter egg. The scene takes place after Takio frees his 1.0 self and confronts him. This is where he learns that his loyalty to the Emperor was all for nothing, as he will inevitably be betrayed. Once Takio comes to this realization, he is quite shocked. Takio 1.0 commits suicide with the help of Takio 2.0, as he knows that his end will bring about change. After being tortured for so long, Takio is finally able to die in peace. Dragon. Gorod Krovi is set in Russia during the bloody Battle of Stalingrad. The group searches for Nikolai 1.0 as they battle through hordes of zombies, manglers, valkyries, and dragons. Gorod Krovi brings back many beloved weapons from previous zombies games like the PPSH and FFAR. The map also brings a load of new weapons over for multiplayer like the L4 Siege and the NX Shadow Claws. Just like Shadows and Zetsubou, Gorod also has a new enemy type to replace the dog round, the Valkyrie drones. Flying robots who shoot beams of electricity at the player. Unlike dogs, spiders, meatballs, and whatever those flying things were from Shadows of Evil, Valkyries have more health than the average zombie and spawn very frequently past round 20. The map also has its own new mini-boss type zombie in the Russian Mangler. While not as big of a threat as something like the Panzer Soldat, the Mangler is still very formidable and can screw you over if you don't deal with it. With the introduction of 2 new zombies variants providing a threat to the player and the unforgiving nature of the map, Gorod Krovi is one of the most challenging zombies maps by far. Is what I would say if the map didn't have the absolutely broken Ray Gun Mark III. This gun can literally create black holes and kill manglers in like 3 shots. The Ray Gun also has a ton of ammo with 161 shots at base and 215 when Pack-a-Punch. The Mark III is legit on the level of the bows from the Eisendrache, and all you have to do to get it is just get lucky at the box. The Gauntlet of Siegfried and Dragon Strike also make the map much easier. The map design is very linear and takes longer to navigate than a map like the Eisendrache. This is about the only way that the map can make itself more challenging without directly screwing over the player. The map still flows very well, but its design makes completing certain side quests a little bit more tedious. But what this map really has going for it is how you unlock Pack-a-Punch. After defending these little pods and collecting parts from them, the player is able to ride a freaking dragon to Pack-a-Punch. An awesome mechanic that also adds to the presentation of the map itself. Let me explain. Usually we aren't able to see outside the map, but being able to observe the destroyed city gives the map a much larger scale. Gorod Krovi also has an absolutely spectacular aesthetic, with the rubble of destroyed buildings and raging fire covering the ground as structures crumble above the player. The map is also set during the daytime, illuminating the impressive remains of the city. The map's color palette is also very visceral, with bright oranges and dim grays. I mean, this image tells you all you really need to know. Now let's move on to the Easter egg / story. The Easter egg is very tedious, but the payoff is worth it. Certain parts of the Easter egg can be genuinely challenging, and the Easter egg would be genuinely impossible without the help of one man. Mr. Awful Waffles. The man, the myth, the legend, the GOAT, the greatest to ever do it. I want to talk about how important this guy was to the community and my personal experience as a Zombies player. During the Black Ops 3 Zombies life cycle, Mr. Awful Waffles would put out a guide for every Easter egg and buildable. He was able to bring a lot of casual players into the world of zombies. I just think he needs to be given his due credit along with other YouTubers like The Smith Plays, Noah J445, and of course, the one and only Mr. T-Lexify.
What the fuck are you wearing, dude? I'm wearing my anime clothes.
At the time, I believe there was no better community than the Call of Duty Zombies community, as people came together to complete Easter eggs and theorize how the story would end. The modern day Zombies community is kind of just an echo chamber of people repeating the same opinions, but this time period was really special. I'll always look back on this time period fondly. And I kind of just wanted to say thank you to all the content creators that helped to make my childhood. Thank you, Zombies community.
Imagine that you're at the bottom of a dark well, and there's a bunch of dicks all around you, and you gotta get them all off, and that's how you dance. So let me show you.
The group is transported to the house after collecting the souls of their 1.0 counterparts. Once teleported to the house, Richtofen is able to reunite with his good friend Maxis. Dr. Monty, the man responsible for wall weapons and the perk machines, transforms each member of the crew into their younger self as a means to restore their innocence. Maxis is tempted by the summoning key and unintentionally releases the Shadow Man. Once released, the Shadow Man summons the Apothecans into Dr. Monty's world, and the crew is forced to fight alongside Dr. Monty to banish the Apothecans and restore the universe. Revelations is an amalgamation of all the previous maps that our characters have visited. It's cool to see all these maps come together in concept, but this is actually the reason why the map suffers. Revelations only has 2 new locations, being the spawn room, which looks amazing by the way, and the Pack-a-Punch area. I believe that the mix of all these contrasting maps could have been molded together a lot better. The maps keep their color palette from the previous appearances. They don't mesh well and create a strange, inconsistent ambiance. The eerie, dark atmosphere of Verrückt and Zetsubou collide with the bright combination of Shangri-La and Eisendrache. This could have been a very intentional choice, but it just feels very off-putting. I just personally wish that the whole map looked like the spawn room. It's genuinely intriguing seeing a unassuming calm cottage being twisted into a fractured reality full of zombies. The new edition of the Furies and recolored Margwas are slightly underwhelming, but what the map really has going for it is it's a shit ton of fun. The map's wonder weapon variety makes it extremely easy, but also makes it fun and good for high rounds. Revelations also has a ton of masks, which the player can wear to get a positive effect, such as an extra hit or increased damage against a certain enemy type. These masks are a lot of fun to play around with, and I actually really love their addition in this map. You're able to mix and match to decide what helmet is best for your playstyle. Revelations also gives the player the option of crafting the Keeper Protector, which is basically the Civil Protector from Shadows of Evil, but Keeper. Revelations is definitely stacked with content and gives the player a plethora of options to choose from. The game doesn't really withhold any map or ability from the player, and I really love this because it makes this map feel like a sandbox. Now you're finally able to answer questions like, what if I had the Apothicon Servant on Kino der Toten, or the Thunder Gun in Der Eisendrache? Easter egg is fairly easy, but like the enemy variety is also underwhelming. The ending is also very strangely disappointing in a way, with Dr. Monty attempting to fix the universe by sending the crew to a different point in time as heroes of the Apothicon Keeper War in the past. It felt inconclusive. This was supposed to be the final zombies map, the end of the story. I remember just how hyped I was when I first completed the map, but once the shock wore off, I really didn't feel the same. After sitting with Revelations for a while, the community realized that the map wasn't really the ending that they desired. As I said earlier, it was disappointing and anticlimactic. And zombies continuing the cycle has always been a very prevalent theme, but it would have been nice to see the actual ending deviate and see us, I don't know, maybe breaking the cycle for the first time. I'm not saying that making this change would make the story immediately better, but I'm just speculating a little and I think it's interesting. And Revelations was a whole lot of fun, but it really didn't feel as meticulously crafted as other maps in the past, like Der Eisendrache or Gorod Krovi. This is the first time it really felt like we got a map that was made to just fill off a bucket list. Do we have the Shangri-La starting room? Check. Do we have the theater from Kino? Check. Do we have the trenches from Origins? Check. You get what I'm saying. And this felt like the end. No one expected anything more. This was the conclusion that we got, whether we liked it or not. And there had never really been a DLC 5 for a zombies game before, so why would there be for this one? But that didn't stop the community from speculating on a mystery DLC 5. This has been an idea for a long time, but it was more of a meme than anything else. Until about 8 months later when the trailer for Zombies Chronicles dropped, bringing 8 classic zombies maps to Black Ops 3 as well as new gobblegums. And this announcement brought life into the community like never before. The community rejoiced as this was exactly what we wanted. Treyarch gave the community one last gift as a way of saying thank you for playing our game. Treyarch also allowed the player base to complete old Easter eggs on these classic maps. Maps like Verrückt, Chino, and Nacht were given new life. And I'm not really going to go into detail on every map as that would take way too long, but there are actually 2 maps that I want to fixate on as I feel like they're the best optimized for Black Ops 3. And those 2 maps are Moon and Origins. I'm going to go over Origins first. Now, I've talked about how Black Ops 3 absolutely masters the ambiance of a map with amazing lighting and unique color palettes. And although Origins wasn't originally created for Black Ops 3, it looks absolutely stunning with new graphics and updated lighting. Now, Origins is already considered by the community, or at least a majority of the community, to be one of the greatest zombies maps of all time, if not the greatest, giving us features like the Panzer and the Staffs, which would go on to become staples of the zombies game mode. And I've gotta say, in Black Ops 3, this feels like Origins at its maximum potential, with upgraded graphics and the option of gobblegums in order to spice up your game. Now, I know that some won't agree with me as gobblegums are somewhat controversial in the eyes of the community, but I truly do believe that this is the best that Origins could be. Now, let's move on to the second map that I wanted to talk about, which is Moon. Moon on Black Ops 3 is absolutely perfect. Personally, this is the map that I find myself going back to play the most. And while maps like Verrückt and Kino der Toten feel good to play on Black Ops 3, this just feels like it was absolutely made for Black Ops 3. This map is perfect for the game's gun loadout and is only further improved with the addition of Widow's Wine. Now, in the past, I didn't play maps like Moon, Ascension, or Origins that much, but now they're some of my favorite of all time. And that's the true beauty of Chronicles. The DLC provided old players with a way to play classic zombie maps in a simple way by putting them all in one game, but it also introduced these beloved maps to a whole new generation of players, allowing them to play a ton of maps that they wouldn't have ever played otherwise. And that's why Black Ops 3 is the greatest Call of Duty Zombies of all time. Thank you. I would like to say thank you to all of you for the support on my last video. I appreciated all the positive comments and they really motivated me. And thank you to everyone who corrected me or pointed out something that I may have missed in the video. I'm going to try to throw up as many comments as I can just to kind of say thank you to all you guys because holy shit. At the time I began recording this video, I actually had 4 subscribers. And yes, 2 of them were my alt accounts, but we're not going to talk about that. And at the time I'm wrapping this up, I currently have 128. To many of you, that might not be huge, but to me, it means something. I'm happy I was able to entertain some of you and make you laugh, even if it was just for 17 minutes. Again, thank you. I can't say that enough. All the positive feedback has really motivated me to improve my content and I guess just continue going. I already have a couple ideas for some future videos, but if you have a suggestion, put it down in the comments. But with that being said, I'm gonna wrap this up now and go get my ass kicked in Overwatch 2. Thanks, Evan. Bye.